Well, hello and welcome to my video, all pumping iron friends. On this video, I want to talk about the three main periods of bodybuilding. Those are the silver era, golden era, and then current modern era. And I also want to talk about what distinguish each era from the other one, the other two. So let's delve into it. The silver era in bodybuilding is representing the time frame between 1940s and 50s, between 1940s and 60s, early 60s. And the names, that a few famous names that we can mention from that period would be bodybuilders such as Bill Pearl, Clarence Ross, Steve Reeves, Reg Park. Reg Park was a bodybuilder who influenced Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was even in Austria before he came to the United States. And then after the end of 60s, the beginning of 70s, which is starting with Arnold Schwarzenegger, he won the Mr. Olympia title between the years 1970 to 75 back-to-back 6 times, and he won his 7th title, Mr. Olympia title, in 1980, which was, we all know, very controversial result. But nevertheless, he was crowned with 7 Mr. Olympia titles. So particularly those years between 1970 and 1975 certainly separates the golden era, or it's also labeled as classical era of bodybuilding, from the silver era of bodybuilding. With the 90s, early 90s, Dorian Yates from England, from United Kingdom, comes into play. And he started another kind of like a revolution in bodybuilding, enormous amount of size that he brought on stage. And that was amazing. He was a beast. He was a beast of size. And he won 6 Mr. Olympia titles, just like Arnold Schwarzenegger, back to back during the 90s. And following that, the new era, the current modern state of bodybuilding started, and I think I can confidently and comfortably attribute the modern era, the new criteria, starting with Ronnie Coleman, who won the Mr. Olympia title 8 times back to back, and eventually he was beaten by Jay Cutler. And Jay Cutler, after him, he won the Mr. Olympia title 4 times. So these are the I just wanted to kind of delineate between those periods by the names, because those of you, and I believe anyone who's watching this video who should be interested in pumping iron, as I said at the beginning, would be familiar with all these names and how they appear on stage in their prime time, like Dorian Yates, Ronnie Coleman, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and going past those silver era bodybuilders such as Reg Park, Bill Pearl, and Steve Reeves. So after we kind of identify those areas, their time frame, and their by name whom can kind of deserve credit as far as, starting a new era, I want to delve into what separates those areas, those different eras of bodybuilding. When you look at this silver era during the 1940s and 50s, the bodybuilders like Reg Park, Bill Pearl, Vince Granda, Jack LaLanne, those guys, they had size, nice, good amount of size, the respectable amount of size, along with symmetry. And the judging criteria for the bodybuilding competitions were looking at size and symmetry, those two combinations. They were not big as they are today into extreme amount of definition and the fat percentages. With the end of the silver era, which was basically, in my opinion, attributable completely almost to Arnold Schwarzenegger. He brought big bigger mass, with good symmetry still, and yet he introduced some fair amount of definition, which was not the case during the silver era. And what is the end of that era that is called classical era, and the starting of the modern bodybuilding? In modern bodybuilding, the judging criteria added another attribute or another dimension. That dimension is extreme definition. So now, the symmetry, which was holding a huge weight during the especially classical era and silver era, the weight that was given to symmetry actually went down significantly. And the judging criteria change in favor of two things. One is extreme mass, and of course we're talking about pro bodybuilding competitions, IFBB pro bodybuilding, IFBB sanctioned pro bodybuilding competitions, such as NPC, the knife, or National Physique Competition, Night of Champions, Arnold Classic, obviously Mr. Olympia kind of competitions. And in this area, two main things, like I said: extreme size and extreme definition. The um, the emphasis that was put on those two makes it impossible to compete on the stage naturally. Literally impossible. In fact, if you look at today's natural bodybuilding competitions and natural bodybuilder, the competitors, especially those folks who are trying to get shredded as much as they can, meaning they're trying to bring down their fat percentage as little as 3 to 5%. I just want to kind of emphasize here the significance of how low the 3 to 5% is. This is how I can explain. That low percentage, 3 to 5% body fat percentage, is so low that one cannot even sustain living in any time any longer than a month, maybe, that is maybe. Or would be torturous thing, and it has extreme health hazards, because our bodies need certain percentage of fat levels, the fat storages, to be able to sustain healthy balance in our overall metabolism. And 3 to 5% levels are extremely low, and health-wise actually very dangerous. Yet the criteria is such that the judging criteria is looking for extreme shredded bodies displaying the muscle mass. The natural bodybuilders, because of the fact that they're supposed to be natural, meaning they should be all clear of all kinds of gear, that is, synthetic steroids, testosterone, TRT, testosterone replacement therapies, or human growth hormones, any kind of insulin injections, any kind of diuretics to retain or to get rid of the water from the body right before the competition, and of course the various different kinds of steroids to be able to accelerate or keeping the muscle mass while losing fat. Since they are not allowed to do those things, with their natural way of dieting and exercise, they can manage to reduce their fat levels, yes, but there is no way to maintain, build, or keep the big mass that is required in bodybuilding. So today, this is my personal opinion. Obviously, anyone can challenge that, can criticize me, but honestly, when I look at today's natural bodybuilding competitions, all I'm seeing here on stage, all I see on stage is a bunch of guys making some movements. It's called posing, and they all look like stickmen. Yes, they're shredded, but I ask myself this question: what is it that they're displaying? What is it that they think they're displaying? Any kind of muscle mass? It's ridiculous because they don't have any muscle mass. For the sake of, in the name of being natural, and trying to basically get shredded at insane levels on stage, they're losing all their muscle size. If you put any clothing on them, any t-shirt, any sweatshirt, any coat, jacket, one cannot even tell they ever did a bodybuilding lift weights in their life. But if you look at, excuse me, if you look at the silver era, they had a respectable amount of size, and they were not looking fat or anything. They had a nice appearance, nice, very aesthetic and symmetrical appearance. They were not shredded as they are today. Their body fat level wasn't anything close to 5%, 4%, 3%. They were probably 10+% body fat level, but their appearance was amazingly good, eye-pleasing, aesthetic, and they had a commanding physique on stage. They had good, massive muscles. This sport, the name of the sport is bodybuilding. What is bodybuilding? We all have to ask ourselves that. What is bodybuilding? It is about muscle mass development. That means adding muscle mass to your body. If it was about how lean you can get on stage, again, as we see in natural bodybuilding, how lean you can get, and it's the almost only criteria, then it should not be called bodybuilding. It should be called something else, some kind of Mr. Leanest guy, something like that. But it's not bodybuilding. I am all for natural achievements, needless to say. But the criteria, I think, should be changed drastically and significantly, and focus and emphasis should be moved away from the extreme shredding, to bigger muscle mass in a good symmetry. So the size and symmetry, those are the ones, the density of the muscle, the thickness of the muscle, how dense, how thick, how well developed, the overall development of each muscle group, and the 8 or 9 muscle groups and how they're flowing together on stage, and obviously how well they're displayed, presentation of it, which is posing routines. So today's current pro bodybuilding, and that's why I wanted to talk about the pro bodybuilding versus the natural bodybuilding. In pro bodybuilding, what we're seeing is doing that, achieving that without the performance enhancing drugs, or PEDs in short. It is literally impossible. It's way beyond human body's natural limits and natural capacity. The reason is, even if one, and let's, it's an assumption, a theoretical assumption, even if somebody can build a size like Ronnie Coleman, and we all know that he was the beast, he brought that enormous amount of size to the game, the beast of the mass. Even though, let's say it's possible, once that person starts cutting down and going to what they call the cut cycle, which is on the average 4 to 6 months prior to competition, he will lose significant portion of that muscle size, simply because of that extreme emphasis on reducing the fat. To maintain this enormous amount of size while reducing the fat percentage is a combination which is impossible to achieve unless chemical agents are used and used at very high dosages and for an extended period of time. That's the only way. This should not take away, and I hate to see people attributing all the success of these top level bodybuilders to only steroids, because steroids alone, we all should acknowledge that steroids alone should not take away the credit from the top level competitors. They are there because of their one, genetic structure, they're genetically advanced, they're lucky. Two, extreme amount of workout, an extreme amount of hard work, combined with the steroids, is bringing them what they're achieving. But at what cost? The level of amount of steroid utilization and abuse is now currently in our age to the point that just in the past year, 2024, we have more than 2,000 of professional bodybuilders died. Those are the ones that we are aware. We know because of the fact that they were well-known names in this sport, and their death was registered in terms of, in our memories. We know, like for instance, Rick Piana, or most recently actually 20-year-old bodybuilding competitor girl during the Arnold Classic. She collapsed and died on stage, and that death was attributed to diuretics, extreme amount of diuretics. Basically, she went into cardiac arrest and died. Her heart failed. Just a couple years ago, top Mr. Olympia contender, actually he was thought to be the best candidate for the Mr. Olympia title. A week prior to the competition in Las Vegas, he was found dead in his hotel room. Cardiac arrest, heart attack. If you look at all these deaths, there is one commonality. The reason of death, the medical reports, official medical reports, call it cardiac arrest. All these people, the ages 25, 30, 35, 40, they all are dying because of cardiac arrest. And it's very well known fact that the extreme amount of steroid usage and abuse is the reason behind that. Not one of the contributing factors, but is the sole reason behind these deaths. No sport should suffer this kind of death. And the sport of bodybuilding, by far, among all the other sports, all the other Olympic sports or whatever, any physique competitions and physique contests and you can think of, is by far the sport that is producing the highest number of deaths. And again, the prime driver behind all these deaths are extreme amount of steroid abuse. So why is it done this way? Again, if you're going up there to compete on stage, you know what the judges are looking for, and everybody is doing this to gain advantage. And if you don't do it, you better don't show up there, because however good you are naturally, it's not going to cut. You're gonna lose it. You know that for a fact. So everybody going up there on the competition on stage, feeling like they are compelled, they are driven, they have to, they must do this, and they're taking an incredible amount of risk. These are the number of deaths that I just talked about. The numbers are actually minuscule. The ones that I mentioned, I gave a few examples. There are a lot more deaths, and on top of the deaths, there is a lot more other medical complications that people who are currently living but suffering the side effects of steroid abuse over the years. So my goal is, why is this happening? Why is it that one cannot say this? I don't care about their judging criteria. I personally think the silver era of bodybuilding And even classical era, and in the classical era, which is the area that Arnold was competing, along with Frank Zane, along with Mike Messer, along with Lou Ferrigno, along with all these names, they were all utilizing steroids, but nothing comparable to the amount that they are being utilized today. That's why Frank Zane today is 84. I think he turned 83 or 84 years old. That's why Arnold is now 78 years old. These are, they lived long enough to prove that their usage of steroids was not to the point to create a damage that cause them losing their lives. Because today, it is beyond understanding, beyond comprehension to see a 20-year-old physique competitor lady, a girl, 20-year-old, died on stage. And this thing is happening more often than we like to believe. We just don't know it. They don't report it. So, bodybuilding, if it is about improving the musculature, the muscle mass, increasing your strength level, the muscular strength level, improving your cardiovascular system, all these things combined can be done without resorting the chemical agents at that intensity. And if this is what they're looking for, just reject that or enforce it to change the criteria, because otherwise, if they don't do that, more and more people will be dying more frequently. I think the ideal judgment, the judging criteria for this sport is the fair amount of muscle mass, like we witnessed even during the silver era, like the names I mentioned, Bill Pearl. Go check his pictures if you don't remember, and put him with the current bodybuilders. He was looking extremely good, very well developed muscles. He was known for his strength, and he didn't have the amount of definition and striation as they are required today. I mean, as you know, today they're looking at the guy's glutes and they gotta see those striations on the guy's glute. That's why they're wearing those speedos and pulling them up, right, to show the striations on their gut, on their glutes. This is an insane level of fat reduction, and yet they have to achieve that low percentage, body fat percentage, while keeping the enormous amount of size. Look at today, Big Ramy, who was Mr. Olympia, who won the Mr. Olympia title, I think 2022, right? A year after Hadi Troop won the title. These are all coming after Phil Heath, who beat Jay Cutler. And in current title, 2024, the current Mr. Olympia is Nigerian Lion. He's also known as Nigerian Lion, Samson Dauda. He's originally from Nigeria. He brought kind of size that baffles anybody's comprehension. It's almost unreal. A lot of people might think it's not real. It's kind of Photoshop or some kind of artificial intelligence created video or picture, but in reality, he is that way. He is incredible. He is a mass monster. He even exceeded Ronnie Coleman in terms of, I think, the mass, the size. Again, if this is, and if these guys are accepting that, that's one thing. But again, going back to my example from the natural bodybuilding competitions, then change their name. Unfortunately, in this climate, the word natural sounds funny and silly because, I mean, it sounds very respectable, natural. You know, I'm not using anything, right? I'm doing this naturally. But then, whatever the physique that you develop, display it without resorting extreme levels of, low levels of body fat percentage at the cost of whatever the muscle mass you develop, because you stay in a kind of getting up there on stage and acting like a stickman. You're not. What is it that you're showing there? All you're showing is how little body fat percentage you have, but there is nothing as far as one can describe as musculature, muscle development. If this is a bodybuilding, it should show mass in a symmetrical fashion, a good formation, and it should be also on stage eye-pleasing. That's called symmetry and aesthetics of bodybuilding. Who was the master? I think no one would even wait a second or pause to answer that. The master of the aesthetics was one of them. One of the greatest names was Frank Zane. So this is what I wanted to discuss. That. What do you think? If anyone is watching that, please put a comment on that one, because this is my comment. This is my raw comment. The current natural bodybuilders, I respect them for what they're trying to achieve naturally, but then again, the same judging criteria is applied to them, and for them to meet that criteria, they're losing all their muscle size in the name of being shredded. Yes, they're shredded, but they're not jacked. They don't have muscle mass. Something must be corrected. Something must change to stop the killings, to stop the, causing these lives lost, all because of this extreme amount of steroid abuse. Especially the young kids today, they're starting at the age of 15, 16, 17, now with the social media and Instagram. They're taking their pictures and they're looking at the bodybuilding influencers, so-called influencers, whatever the hell they are. They're showing up on YouTube, they're putting up videos and in Instagram and Telegram and putting their pictures. So many of them are actually kind of photoshopped, unreal, and it's pushing these kids. The year they start, they're talking about with each other, talking about steroids, which is extremely dangerous. Extremely dangerous. They're not even putting the effort. They're not even thinking about putting the effort. They're just talking about abusing steroids. And something must change. There must be some role model to kind of shake this whole mess and make this a respectable, healthy activity again. Like in the silver era, even the classical era. You remember what Arnold Schwarzenegger was saying lately? He was saying, I hate the current state of bodybuilding. And he is the guy who brought bodybuilding to the levels in the United States and in the world as it is today. He has a huge, huge influence. That's why he's one of kind, a unique person and personality. And he's saying, look at today's bodybuilders. The current, he's talking about professional bodybuilders. One example I can give is Kai Green. Kai Green. Incredible amount of mass, right? Yes. Professional bodybuilder, yes. Olympia contender, yes. Look at his gut, what they call his bubble gut. Why do you think he's having that bubble gut? And so many of them are, showing up on stage with bubble guts. Why? Because of amount of, chemical agents, steroids, and all kind of gear they're having. Not only the muscles are growing, unfortunately you cannot select what grow, what not to grow. As you inject those chemicals into your body, everything grows along with muscles. That includes internal organs. Your liver is growing too, for instance. Your heart muscle is growing too. Your kidneys are growing. Everything is growing. Even the tiny little what they call micro muscles are growing too. And I will also touch base that. With that, even though they still have this extremely low percentage of body fat, like 3 to 5%, their midsection is protruding almost like a 6-month pregnant woman. This is unbelievable. This sport during the classical age was looking at this perfect symmetry, and the midsection was supposed to be perfectly aligned with that. No protrusion would be allowed. But now it's all protruding because of this chemical agent's role on bodybuilding. One other thing that you notice, if you pay attention, bodybuilders' faces, those who abuse, the gear, I'm going to call in general gear, they appear to be much older. Why do you think it's that? What's causing that, you think? What happens is this. The muscles we have on our face, they're tiny little muscles. For instance, when you smile, some muscle is moving. When you make like movements like this, kind of exclamation, oh, you're surprised, or you're happy, you're smiling, or whatever, the muscles are moving. Those muscles are even enlarging those tiny little muscles on our faces. And as they grow unproportionally, they add years of aging to the face. This is just the opposite of what Botox is. What Botox is, a lot of women, right, they apply Botox to look younger. They use the chemical, and they basically freeze each of those muscles to prevent any kind of wrinkling on their faces. That's what Botox is. This is just the opposite. The muscles, even those tiny little micro level size muscles that they're growing too, and then in no time, maybe in a few years, the guy is using this, maybe next 5 years, if you look at his face, you'd be hard pressed to be even able to recognize that guy because he looks so different. He looks completely like a different person. So I think there should be some kind of a serious amount of work to regulate the activity today, the sport's called bodybuilding, and clean its image. And those who are naturally talented and gifted genetically and putting enough amount of hard work, years, should be getting their achievements naturally, and nobody should be giving them hard time, kind of taking the credit away from them and chalking up all the success and achievement to using the gear and steroids. That's an unfortunate situation. But they brought the sport to this level, and this is the public image of this sport. It became a freak activity. It should be healthy activity. It should be basic, part of like a basic health, the foundation of healthy body and everything. Unfortunately, they brought it to the levels that anyone would be calling this. Even Arnold Schwarzenegger did that, a freak show. Thank you very much, folks, watching my video up until this point. And I'd be very happy if I get any comments about you on my thoughts. Stay healthy. Thank you.